All right, here we go. It is time to talk week number 8 college football trends and additional information that I was not able to get to on our college football show that we posted late yesterday on Prime Sports Network. And this is a great time, as a better time as any, to remind everybody about our transition over to the official Our Lads YouTube channel. So the Our Lads YouTube channel is going to be the place where we are going to migrate to, and that is where you're going to be able to see all of our videos moving forward. Football. Now, we are going to still edit and process some of the film over to Prime Sports Network. But if you want to follow us for our information, matter of fact, I just concluded the first 2024 NFL Draft Report video with Dave Syvertson, the lead scout at Our Lads. So that's going to be available on the Our Lads channel as well. And this show is also going to be on Our Lads. So hopefully you've been able to find us, and we did promote it yesterday on the college football show. So obviously, if you're watching this video, you did find us. Look, we have a lot to talk about, so let's just get through it, but please subscribe. We're just starting the channel out. We've got a long way to go before we can get to that magic 1,000 subscribers and start earning revenue, and then a lot more, because we have a lot of cool stuff that we are going to be bringing to the Our Lads channel. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've been waiting for this for years, and this is going to be great. So I also want to let everybody know this is important. Keep this in mind, especially when I do these specific shows. When I do these shows, the only reason I'm doing this show after I did the college football show is because I do want to get NFL coverage out. I would like to eventually have someone. I mean, Mark would do it, but Mark does the college football, and I don't want to be putting Mark in all these positions, Mark Lawrence, where he's got to do this, that, and the other thing. I mean, he's my client. So I will eventually find an NFL co-host, and when I do, then I'll have an NFL show, and then that's what this will be. But I wanted to be able to get the NFL stuff out, and I figured, okay, well, there's so much college football information I never get to, so let's put it on this video too. What's important to note, though, again, this is about the information. That's what it's about. Okay, this is not a handicapping, like gambling channel, or yes, do we have it? Absolutely, but this is not the place to go to find out. Nor do I think any of the bozos on TV. I mean, everybody thinks it's funny, and I can imagine maybe the producers are telling them to, but nobody cares about the picks of all these people that are on TV, and they have their little post and pregame shows in the studio for the games, and then they give their picks in the pre. Nobody cares. I mean, the only people that really matter about whether or not you have a pick for the game are people who do the work. All right, and those are the people like from Playbook. Okay, that's what those guys are. They've got the Playbook Experts YouTube channel, Mark Lawrence and Andy Isco and Victor King and Jim Feist, of course. Those are the real brains behind handicapping in the sport. Those are the guys that you pay to get their information. I am certainly not that person, because I am getting all of my information from Dan's Playbook Guide. Okay, so that's where I get my information from. Now, do I have my own take? Obviously, and I'm going to give you an example. Yesterday, Mark and I we were talking about a college football game. I think it was the Ohio State-Wisconsin game. I'm not sure if it was another one, but I'm going to just reference this. I think I think it was. So he was all on Wisconsin, and he gave this really big stat that he found, and that was part of why he was going to go with Wisconsin. I countered with a stat from his own guide that went against Wisconsin, that the Badgers are 2-15 against the spread off a straight-up ATS win when they take on an opponent off back-to-back straight-up ATS wins. So I countered that. Now, I'm bringing this up because there are going to be instances where you're going to get really good stats for both teams. But then it is up to you. How do you feel? And then you take one of the stats and then you bring that in. That's how I do it. Now, I'm not going to tell you how Mark does it, but that's how I do it. And that's the reason that's where I come up with my picks. So I'm just not getting so it's just, that's proof, because obviously I'm just not getting that information. If I did, well, then I would have been wrong in a way, because I would have had that Wisconsin stat, and and I would say, yeah, Ohio State, there's that bad Wisconsin stat, there you go. But then what about the other stat that says it says pro Wisconsin stat? I didn't give that. So that's what I'm talking about, is that now you might say, well, they're great stats for everybody and bad stats for everybody, right? No, they're not. And that's like how I do it every week, is when the lines come, before the lines come out, I predict what I think the line should be. And this is something I think we're going to do next year, because I think this would be a good show to do it. And that is, predicting the lines. So I predict the lines, and if I see a big disparity, if I see something that is wow, I mean, I didn't expect that line to be, like, for instance, I thought the Old Dominion line with James Madison was going to be something like around 12, maybe 14 at the most. But I was like, yeah, it's probably about 12 or something like that. And it was 19. That's a big gap. And then I've got to take Old Dominion. I mean, so I was already then pre-sold. First thing I saw before I even broke any game down, anything, was that line number. And I'm going to have about 4 or 5 of those that automatically are just so different than what I think. Well, I've got to take them. Now, can I find some stats that work for that team as well? And if I can get that, and then I don't see any stats that work completely against it, there's my pick. Okay? So like the Wisconsin-Ohio State pick, I'm going to tell you right now, that can go either way. Because if Wisconsin covers, well, then there you go. You've got the information that Mark gave, and that's another check mark for that to work out. But if Ohio State covers, then I've got the check mark that goes into the stat that I gave. So, all right, let's run through these really fast in the college football, and then I'm going to do the NFL. So, and we did get off to a little bit of a good start this week. I'm going to say a little bit, because we did not hit our 3-star, which was Georgia Southern, just blasting Georgia State. And that's Sun Belt right now. If James Madison just keeps just plowing over everybody, that's one thing. But to me, which is part of the reason why I like Old Dominion this week, I mean, it's just too competitive. And one week you're going to have James Madison destroying Georgia Southern. The next week you're going to have Georgia State beating Louisiana Lafayette. The next week you're going to have Georgia Southern beating up on Georgia State. It's just that's just the way it's going to be. All right. Oh, but we hit big on Virginia Tech. That was a 4-star play. As a matter of fact, I'm going to throw those up there right now. These were our picks. We put this on the screen yesterday. And we do have a game tonight. That's FAU. It's also a 3-star here. So there's the loss there. And then there's the win there, Virginia Tech over Syracuse. But, yeah, we were really high on Virginia Tech, and we talked about that. Oh, we don't need that again. We talked about that yesterday, as just in the beginning of the show as well. All right, anyway, let's get right to it. So these are the games these that we did not really go over on the show. Took South Carolina as a 15-point dog against Texas A&M. Texas A&M is 0-10 against the spread when they're coming off a bye, so with rest, and they have revenge because they did lose to South Carolina last year. Auburn. I'm taking Auburn against Mississippi State. First of all, no idea if the quarterback from Mississippi State is going to play, Will Rogers, so that helps. Also, the Bulldogs are 0-8 against the spread on the road when they come off an upset win, like they did last week, upsetting Arkansas. I do like Auburn in that spot. The Georgia-Florida game, we talked all about that. So if you want to find out more about that, you got to watch the College Football Show. We talked about the Tennessee-Kentucky game as well. Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, we did not talk about. I mentioned that there were a few teams that I was considering for an upset. This was one of them. Because Vanderbilt, it's interesting. You get this Vanderbilt team, and if you look at it, you go, yeah, but they're bad. They haven't even covered a game this year. But if you look at it, they didn't even cover a game until the last game against Georgia. But if you look at it, they, in mostly every game, they have been Like in the third quarter, they're like 2 scores away, and all they need is like one stop and then a score to go with them, one score, and they got a game late in the game. They can't get to that spot. That's what's holding them back. And it even happened against Georgia. They just can't get to the point where they can put a little pressure on the other team. Now, when you're down 2 scores, you need 2 stops and 2 scores, and that's asking a little bit. But keep this in mind too. They're playing SEC teams week in and week out, so it's really tough. Now they're coming off a bye, so I like that. I also like the fact that the new quarterback Ken Seals is looking pretty good. This was a player that in 2020, as a true freshman, was only the third freshman in SEC history to start an opener since 1972. So they thought highly enough of him. He had a pretty decent year as a freshman, pretty decent. The next year, there was like an injury situation. It didn't work out as well. And, he had an injury situation. And then even last year, just it wasn't able to get the other quarterback took over the spot. And the job was open again this year. He did not get the job in when the season opened. But then the job opened up. And it opened up 3 games ago. So he was able to see if a couple of years off since his freshman campaign, could he get back to that guy? Now he's got a couple of years. Well, it's looked like it. So Ken Seals, in his last 3 starts, is thrown for 740 yards, 61% completion percentage, and a 6-2 touchdown to interception ratio. Not bad for the Vanderbilt Commodores. Ole Miss, meanwhile, it is homecoming. I think of that as a distraction. When you are a 24.5-point favorite and you're at homecoming, this could be a distraction. Also, overconfidence. You got distraction, overconfidence. That combined could be an issue. Ole Miss is 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 as a home favorite, and 2-15 against the spread at home when they take on an opponent with a winning percentage of 700 or less, SEC opponent, with revenge coming in. And so I'm taking Vandy. They're going to end up being a 3-star. But I was a little bit close to going with the money line. Now I'm going to do it. I'm going to put a couple bucks on my end on the money line in some sort of way, but wasn't about to invest $100 like in my system to do it. Okay, let's now move on to the Big Ten. Northwestern and Maryland. Now this is one of my double-digit upsets. Northwestern, all time against Maryland, 2-1 straight up, 3-0 against the spread. Maryland did beat Northwestern last year, though. And that's the better Maryland teams and the not so better Northwestern teams. But this is interesting. Northwestern has alternated wins and losses all year. I'm going to bring this up later on with another team or two. And if this continues, well, they're supposed to win. Maryland, their last 2 games, 0-2, straight up ATS, last 2. Off to a great start. All of a sudden, just hasn't worked out the last couple. Lost to Illinois, and they're not having a big season. Now they went into a bye. Maybe that'll help them out. But again, the fact is, I think they're one of those teams that might be ripe for an upset. And again, they're given 14. Northwestern 425, I believe, on the money line. Minnesota, I took them as a 7-point favorite against Michigan State. Berger's now out for the year. One of the top weapons for Michigan State on offense. So it's not getting any better. I can't imagine how they're going to rebound from the loss against Michigan. I mean, they're having such a bad year. They're on such a bad run. Well, at least we got the Michigan game. Hey, we've seen, we've had teams that have been a 20-point dog before beat Michigan. Well, maybe we can do it. Got destroyed. Now they got to play the very next week, and they're only a 7-point dog against Minnesota. I don't understand that. Minnesota, look, they need wins for bowls. This is a big game for them. They can't be taking Michigan State lightly. So this is a game that really, I'm not going to bring any stats into it, any of those trends. This is just, I think Michigan State is going to have a hard time just having anything in this one, especially if Minnesota gets off to a good start. Look, Minnesota doesn't have an explosive offense. They're not going to kind of blow them out like Michigan did, that's for sure. But I still don't think 7 points is all that much to give up. Meanwhile, I did not take this game, but I know there's a Nebraska fan out there on our channel, so I wanted to throw this in there. Nebraska 9-1 against the spread off of a straight-up win at home when they take on an opponent off a double-digit straight-up loss. Purdue, meanwhile, just 1-4 straight-up ATS in their last 5. Nebraska, though, 5-10 against the spread. Their last 15 is a home favorite. And the dog in the series has won 3 out of 4, covering the last 4. But no, I did not touch the game. Let's move on to the other team that I maybe upset, and that was Wake Forest. But I just couldn't do it. But like the Vanderbilt pick, I'm gonna throw a couple bucks on them. Wake Forest has won all 3 against Florida State. Actually, the last 3 against Florida State, including 2 outright upsets. Matter of fact, I talked about this game and threw a few more stats in there that you can check out on the College Football Show. We talked about the Duke Louisville on that show. Did not mention this on that on the show, the Virginia Miami game. It's like an 18.5 point spread. Virginia 7-1. I did take Virginia, coming off the big upset against North Carolina. Virginia 2-3 straight up, 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 against Miami, all as dogs like they are in this spot, and 3-7 straight up, 8-2 against the spread in their last 10 against Miami. Matter of fact, the last 5 in the series has been decided by 8 points or less, including 3 by 3 points or less. Hold on one second. All right, let's continue now with the. I think we're done. No, we have one more with the ACC, and that is Boston College and UConn. No, actually, we have a few others because there's a lot of games in the ACC this week, which is probably why they had a Thursday night game. Boston College and UConn. Boston College is a 14.5 point favorite in this one. There are a few trends that work against UConn. 0-8 against the spread off a straight up favored loss. 0-1 in that spot this year. 0-6 against the spread as dogs of 7 points or more when they take on an opponent with revenge. And that is the trick, revenge. Boston College got upset last year by UConn. You would think that they want to get back at them. I mentioned this last week. Jeff Hafley has done an excellent job with coaching this team this year. It looked like a month ago he was going to get fired. Now, as long as they keep playing the way they've been playing lately, they might want to give him an extension, actually. So, but they have to keep that up because they're only 2-5 against the spread as a home favorite under Hafley. But I'm going to take BC and the 14 to see if they get their revenge. I'm also taking NC State over Clemson in the points. Clemson 0-9 against the spread as a favorite of more than 7 when they're coming off a straight-up favored loss versus an opponent off a straight-up loss. Now, NC State's off a bye, so they get that, and they needed it. I mean, they had the clunker against Duke. They upset Clemson just a couple of years ago at home as a 10-point dog, just like they are now. And they are 15-2 against the spread when they come off a bye and a loss before the bye. So that's a pretty big number there. We're taking the Wolfpack. North Carolina and Georgia Tech, and we talked about this game on the show, so check that out. And this was another one of the alternate loss-wins deals that favors Georgia Tech in this game. But I do like Georgia Tech to possibly hand it to North Carolina in back-to-back weeks. In the Big 12, West Virginia and Central Florida. Central Florida is a 7-point favorite. I don't understand this. This is just all about the Oklahoma close game. What else is there? They've lost 4 straight games. They're 0-2 straight up against the spread as a Big 12 favorite. So they're a Big 12 favorite again here. West Virginia, meanwhile, 2-0 straight up ATS in their last 2 as Big 12 dogs. Actually, it's the Big 12 dogs this year, period. They've only been in the spot twice. They've won both of them. Neil Brown, the head coach, we know how important this game is going to be to get them back on the right track. Well, as a head coach, 13-3 against the spread, coming off losses of 14 or more points. That's what they're doing here. So I like West Virginia plus the 7. You can also get a little bit over 2-1 on the money line. We did not talk about Kansas State Houston. I did not pick this game. And the reason is because Houston has covered 10 straight as dogs of more than 11, including last week against Texas. Kansas State, though, 11-3 in their last 14 as a home favorite against the spread. 3-0 in that spot this year by a 127-147 margin. That's pretty convincing. If I didn't have that one trend that just says, hey, man, Houston's good in this spot, I'd be on Kansas State minus the 17.5. Oklahoma, Kansas, we talked a lot about that. We'll find out if Jalen Daniels plays or not. That's obviously going to be a big deal. BYU, Texas, we talked about the quarterback situation. Arch Manning, will he play at all, or does Malik Murphy get to start and play the entire game? I suspect we'll see a little bit of Manning, but we'll see. I think I was really think this is another one of those games. I was a little bit, BYU, could they take advantage? Texas, they're coming off. I mean, they didn't look good last week. They're lucky to win that game. The week before that against Oklahoma, losing that game, and are they a frame of mind? How is it? BYU looked like they maybe come off their best win of the year. So yeah, and the quarterback out. I was thinking of it. They were 7-1 dog, and I might put a buck there on a parlay with that, but I did take the points. Okay, Iowa State Baylor. No, I took Iowa State, but this is one of those rare moments where I'm completely disregarding stats that say I should be taking Baylor. So take Baylor if you like, because they are 3-2 straight up, 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 against Iowa State. Iowa State 0-5 against the spread. Their last 5 as a road favorite. 0-1 in that spot. All of this says take Baylor, but you know how I am with Matt Campbell and Iowa State. And I don't think anybody thought that Iowa State would be 4-3 at this point in the season. The way the season started, the offense and all that. But they're starting to play that kind of Matt Campbell, Iowa State football. Look, the thing they don't have, though, they don't have the Breece Hall in the backfield. They don't have the Brock Purdy at quarterback. But this is they're kind of waiting to see. Maybe one of those guys will come along again in the next year or two, as long as Matt Campbell is there. In the meanwhile, they usually still play pretty decent football with Matt Campbell and go to bowls. So I think Iowa State's a better team. I don't think there's any question we're a better team than Baylor this year. But those are some pretty big stats to try to just ignore. And we talked about the Cincinnati-Oklahoma State game. And this was another game, by the way, that Mark and I disagreed on. Mark gave a couple of stats. Matter of fact, it's one of his free picks this week, taking Cincinnati. So he does have some good numbers there. But then I countered. Cincinnati 0-5 straight up and against the spread in their last 5. Oklahoma State 3-0 straight up and against the spread in their last 3. But that was when they were dogs, and that's the thing that does scare me a little bit. Matter of fact, if it wasn't for that, I'd probably take them as a 3-star at least. I just couldn't get to that point because of the Cowboys now being in the home favorite role. But what I did like is the Cowboys have covered 13 straight as home favorites of less than 33 when they take on an opponent off of back-to-back straight-up losses. Moving on to the Pac-12. The Utah-Oregon game, we didn't talk a whole lot about it trend-wise, so I'll throw some in. I throw a few in there, but some I did not. A couple of them I stayed away from until now. But most of the stuff we did talk about on the college football show. Bottom line is, I went with Oregon. You would normally think this would be a spot I would jump all over Utah, since I took Utah last week in the upset over USC. But Oregon and Utah have had a nice little even rivalry here lately. And more important, I was surprised to see that Utah has lost 6 straight as a home dog. That surprises me. 2-3-1 in that spot against the spread. So, yeah, I just think, again, to me, it's more of, that was a big one. But for me, it's just more of Oregon, couple of weeks off from the Washington game, had the win last week, Washington State. Utah coming off the big win against USC. Oregon in a little bit better frame of mind to take on Utah, which is why I'm going to go with Oregon in that spot. USC and Cal. Trojans have dropped 5 straight covers. Cal 1-3 straight up and 0-4 against the spread in their last 4. So, yeah, I didn't touch this game. This is a murderous schedule for Cal that they're in the middle of. They played Utah last week. They play USC this week. Then they play Oregon after that. That is a heck of a 3-game stretch for Cal. Justin Wilcox, which I don't know if Justin Wilcox has to win one of these games. I've been a big Justin Wilcox guy. I think he's done a nice job there at Cal, but I think sooner or later, if you just can't get to the top, like he seems to get this team to bowls, and it looked like they're a game away from a bowl, or they just always seem to be on the second level. But with the expansion going on, who knows? Maybe it's not the right time, but sooner or later, I think he is going to have to come up with a big win. Colorado, UCLA, I was a little bit surprised myself to take Colorado in this game because, with UCLA's offense, we could see just a crazy high-scoring affair. But that is why I'm going with Colorado in the points. They're coming off a bye. And so I'm thinking they're going to recharge their batteries a little bit. And they need to. So this might be a really good spot for them to do that. And that's why I'm going to go ahead and take Colorado because and this was helpful. The Bruins are 1-10 against the spread as a home favorite of 7 or more, coming off a straight up win. Arizona State and Washington State, and I jumped all over Arizona State this week. And there's a few reasons why. Washington State, get this, 4-28 against the spread in second of back-to-back conference road games. 4-28. All right, well, there you go. They're also 0-10 against the spread, straight up and against the spread, I should say, on the road in Pac-12 games versus teams off of a loss when they have rookie head coaches. How crazy is that one? 0-10. Yeah, Arizona State 3-0-1 against the spread in their last 4. We liked them last week as the heavy dog against Washington, and they almost won the game. So I think that they're on a nice track, and Washington State's going the opposite way. So I'm going to go ahead. The one thing to worry about, though, if you're thinking of Washington State, under Jake Dickert, the head coach, since last year as the head coach, 3-0, straight up and against the spread as a road favorite. Oregon State, Arizona, I had to stay away from. I really like both of these programs, especially Oregon State. I've been behind them ever since Jonathan Smith took over. I've been high on him from the get start. And this is why I'm just so happy to see them playing so well now. 3-0, straight up and against the spread in their last 3, all by double digits as a single-digit favorite. So they've been able to cover, hey, you're supposed to win by 3, you're supposed to win by 6, and they've been double-digit winning. That's why they've been covering. Arizona, we've been backing them big time with Jed Fish, and they are just off to a great, well, not a great start, but a great middle. And so they're coming off a bye. Both teams are coming off a bye. Arizona, by the way, 5-1 against the spread this year. 11-1 with rest when they take on an opponent, coming off back-to-back straight-up ATS wins. And that's the spot they're in. But I got to throw a bad one in there. Part of the reason I'm staying away from this game. Arizona 1-10 against the spread, off of a straight-up ATS win when they take on an opponent with a 750 or more winning percentage. I just don't want to see that game on the Pac-12 network, if you know what I mean. All right, let's get to the group of 5, and a lot here we did not cover. So let's go right to it. AAC tonight. I mentioned I like Florida Atlantic. I just think they're a better team than Charlotte, period. And the line's about 3.5. Charlotte 2-6, last 8 as a home dog since 2020. 2-9 against the spread as dogs of 15 or less. 0-2 in that spot, I believe. No, 1-2 in that spot this year, but 0-2 in the spot of being a home dog this year. 0-7 against the spread when they take on teams with a winning percentage of better than 333 off a double-digit loss, straight-up loss. Florida Atlantic has won the last 4 versus Charlotte, including the last 2, by an 81-22 margin. So I'm taking FAU tonight at Charlotte. I'm also taking Tulsa in the points against SMU. And I mentioned on the show yesterday how much I admired Lashley and the job he's done at SMU this year with all the transfers and all. But some really big trends go Tulsa's way. 14-3 as a road dog in the last 17, 2-1 in that spot this year. 19-1 against the spread on the road when they take on teams with winning percentages of 600 or better, 1-0 in that spot this year. So we do like Tulsa getting the 21 against SMU. To North Texas and Memphis, this is one of our single-digit upsets. They're getting 7.5 in this spot. Look, great job. They're starting to really come together now with the transfer quarterback Charles Rogers from Louisiana Monroe. Jamori Macklin. Now, this is a kid to keep an eye on. Group of 5 kid is off to a really big start for North Texas, so that's a name to keep watch. North Texas is starting to play much better football now. They've won 3 out of their last 5. They've covered all 4 in those last 5. They just had a great loss, if you want to put it, at Tulane, tied with 3 minutes to go. So that shows you where they're playing right now. So a lot. Now look, Memphis is in a good spot. They're 4-0 straight up ATS as a road favorite. So they're in a good spot too. But this is, maybe better to take the points because I definitely think, to me, this is going to be the way North Texas is playing. I think this should be a nice one-score battle. But Memphis, they usually find ways to beat these types of teams. It's the bigger boys that they have problems with. But I'm going to roll the dice with North Texas in the money line. Tulane and Rice. I talked about this being an upset and why on the college football show, so you have to check that out. One of the reasons, Rice has covered 13 straight as a conference dog of 10 or less off a straight up win. Keep an eye on the line. Okay. It was 10.5 yesterday. Mountain West Conference. As we mentioned on the show yesterday, wow. 3 huge games this weekend. Wyoming and Boise State being one of them. Air Force and Colorado State. That's going to be one of my upsets in that one. And UNLV and Fresno. UNLV is being completely disrespected as a 7.5-point dog in this one, especially with Mikey Keene, the quarterback for Fresno. Unknown if he's going to be playing a quarterback this week in this spot. I'm not sure if I gave these trends. No, actually, we did. Yeah, we did. I did give those trends. So you can get them on the show, on the college football show. But I also like San Jose State against Fresno. We have talked a little bit about San Jose State the last few weeks, and they've covered for us the last few weeks. So we're definitely sticking with them. Remember last week we talked about Brett Brennan, 10-1-1 against the spread during the regular season off a double-digit ATS win. And what did they do? They went ahead and they beat Utah State last week. And they were 9-1-1 in that spot when we said it. They've won their last 2 by a 94-45 margin, San Jose State has. Okay, that schedule. Remember we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Not as tough as it was in the beginning of the season, and they need wins to get to the bowl. Sun Belt, Marshall, Coastal Carolina. Man, the injuries are going to kill watching this game. Allie, the star running back from Marshall, questionable, and it does not look like Grayson McCall is going to play for Coastal Carolina. That is a shame. Troy and Texas State. This is a big matchup in the West, Sun Belt West. Both teams are 2-1, so this is huge. Line went from 4 to 6, and that tempted me to go with Texas State, but I'm staying away. Troy has won 4 straight and 3 out of 4 against the spread, including the last 3 games by an 84-10 margin. So they are just peaking right now. They have won 8 straight against Texas State. Matter of fact, all 8 have been as conference foes. So they've never lost as conference foes, Troy against Texas State. But the last 2 wins have been by 3 points each. Matter of fact, Troy has covered 10 of the last 14 as a road favorite and covered 7 straight off a bye when they take on a conference opponent like they're doing on Saturday, coming off a bye in that matchup. Now, I took Old Dominion outright against James Madison, and I explained why on the show. So I hope what I saw last night with Georgia Southern was just a good sign that this conference is just going to be completely wide open. But the only way for that to happen is James Madison needs to have one of those bad weeks. All right. Also, I just want to throw this out there in the Sun Belt. I'm not taking this game because I was going to take Louisiana Monroe. I think they're a better team this year than Arkansas State. It is homecoming. And they covered 3 out of 4. 2 of those are 1-point losses. But Arkansas State has won and covered 13 straight against Louisiana Monroe. Now, you probably should say, well, how come you didn't pick them? 13 straight. And by the way, Louisiana Monroe is the favorite. I probably should have taken Arkansas State. But again, I see these are the situations. I was taking Louisiana Monroe before I looked into any of the stats. So a lot of times what will happen is that'll do exactly what it did. Is if I like a team and then I see a trend that goes against me, well, then I just won't taste the game. I'm not going to switch. Sometimes I do, but it all depends. But I'm not going to switch in this spot. I don't switch often, but sometimes I do because sometimes I do need more information that I'm not even up to. Because there's a lot of teams and a lot of games and a lot of stuff to go on every week that I have to refamiliarize myself with. In the MAC, Western Michigan at Eastern Michigan. Now, here's a situation where I was a little bit surprised that Western Michigan was a 3-point favorite. And we've taken Western Michigan the last 2 weeks as big dogs. Almost got it done for us last week at Ohio. But in this spot, they're the favorite. How about this? Eastern Michigan is 4-1 straight up, 5-0 against the spread. Their last 5 years against Western Michigan, including the last 4 as dogs, like they are again. Matter of fact, they won games of 13 and 9. This is only 3. Yeah, I don't understand this. And Eastern Michigan is playing their best football of the year. They're 2-2 straight up, 4-0 against the spread in their last four. They lost both their games by 7 points or less, and they've covered seven. Now, this is one of those that you can take it for whatever you want, but they've covered 7 straight games before they've matched up the following week with Toledo, who they got next week. So, oh, by the way, Western Michigan 1-6 straight up versus the FBS this year, and 1-0 as a favorite, which they are this week. They were a 1-point favorite at Ball State and won that game. So I guess that's good there, and they've covered 4 out of 5. But I don't know. The series trends, that matters to me more than the other trends. Actual series trends, or what have you done lately? Those do matter for me more. Keep in mind, Brett Gabbert, the Miami game, if you missed it against Toledo, close game last week, but they lost Brett Gabbert. It was a serious injury. He's out for the year. It was just such a bad. I felt so bad for the kid. It was just tough. The backup had nothing, and Miami was done. It had nothing once Brett Gabbert went out. So Ohio's a 7-point favorite. They've won and covered the last 2 years against Miami. It's gonna be tough for Miami to come back out of that, but I just can't take that game because you just never know. As Mark Lawrence has always talked about, and we've mentioned many times on this program, always keep your eye on that first game when you have a situation, when you have a quarterback that is going to be starting for the first time. Like, he's the backup and he gets an opportunity to start, and team rallies around him kind of stuff. All right, let's talk NFL. Hold on one second. Might be wondering why I'm taking breaks here during the show, my little 5-second breaks. That's because my cat needs to get in and out of the door. It's always a nice, helpful thing for my cat to do. All right, let's talk NFL. Let us take a look at our picks in the NFL. We got killed last week. Oh, no, those are my college football picks. Let's remove those. Here's the NFL. Okay, so we're kind of back to scratch, 9-8 overall in the NFL. So those are the picks there. All right, so let's go get them this week, right? Right. Let's start with, I'll go chronologically, or maybe I should go with the top picks. Why don't I do that? My top pick this week is Dallas. And the Cowboys are a 6-point favorite in their two home games this year. They've won by a combined 68-13. They've covered 7 of the last 9 as a home favorite, 2-0 this year. They beat LA last year on the road as a 5-point dog. They won that one by 12. And yes, the Rams have looked good on the road this year. They're 2-1 straight up, 2-0-1 against the spread. McCarthy's done a pretty good job as a head coach with his team coming off a bye, so that helps. And by the way, Dallas plays Philly next week. But I'm just going to, for me, it's just a gut feeling. They played really well at home. I kind of think the Rams are due for a clunker. That's just my gut feeling. I can see why other people might look the other way. But I'm going to go, and 6 points, it's not bad considering how well the Cowboys have played at home this year. So I'm taking the Cowboys minus the 6. I'm also taking the Jets against the Giants. And I've done so far, so good. It's my favorite team. And when I picked them, things have gone well this year. And I'm doing it again in this spot. Matter of fact, I think the last time I had them was against Denver. And same situation. Matter of fact, they were a 2-point dog, I think, in that game. Here, they were 2.5-point favorite. So it could be 2, it could be 3. First time Jets have been favorite this year, not good. Off a bye, so far Salah, 0-2, not good. So there are some things, but look, we all know the Jets are a better team this year than they've been the last 2 years. So I think that matters. And 0-2, when it becomes 0-3, 0-4, then you worry. The other thing, though, is that like I said myself with the Denver game, and I forget which other game it was. I think it was the Bill game at opening night. Of course, I didn't think they were going to win and cover the way they did, but that was the fact that they're just a better team than the Giants. That's all this is. Both teams are going to come after each other because they know how important it is, and backyard game. And the Jets are just a better team. Okay, so we'll see. Now, we know the Giants are much better because Barkley's back. We understand that. It should be interesting to see if he gets the long-term contract. But the Giants are 0-9 against the spread in their last 9 when they are at home, and they took on a non-division opponent off an upset win. So there's that. That's the biggest stat I have in the game, but I'm going with the game because I think the Jets are better. And if the Jets are going to be a serious playoff contender this year, they cannot lose this football game. Next up is my 3-star pick, Tennessee against Atlanta. And yes, it looks like Ryan Tannehill not playing. So who plays? Will Levis. I prefer Will Levis over Malik Willis. We talked about this a couple of years ago on our draft coverage. I could not for the life of me understand why everybody was getting all crazy for Malik Willis. Could not for the life of me. The kid is a glorified he's a running back playing quarterback. It just doesn't make any sense to me why he's still even in this spot. But it is what it is, and he's not supposed to be playing on Sunday, so I'm good with that. But why did I take this this game? 2 main reasons. One, they're playing the quarterback. The new quarterback gets to play. I'm going to get that rally around the quarterback deal. But I'm also going to get Mike Vrabel, head coach off buys, 5-0, straight up and against the spread. I'm also going to get Tennessee as a home dog, 8-2 against the spread. Their last 10 as a home dog, 2-0 straight up and against the spread as a home dog this year, 6-1 straight up and against the spread in their last 7 as a home dog. On the flip side, let's throw in the fact that Atlanta is 1-8 against the spread as a road favorite of 2 or more. Tennessee is my 3-star pick. As far as the rest of the slate, another pick I have is Carolina against Houston. So this would be an intriguing matchup. You get the 2 top quarterback prospects, draft picks, Stroud and Young. You have the switch, an offensive coordinator for Carolina off the bye. Tons of injuries for the Panthers. But the bye, we'll see if they can regroup in some way. They haven't covered a game all year, which that was not good. But Frank Reich, as a head coach, after a bye, has won 4. He's 4-0, and he's 3-0-1 against the spread off a bye. There you go. That's really good. Houston is a favorite on the road for the first time since 2020. Okay? Not a good spot. We talked about this with college teams, too. And we even talked about this. We've talked about it with the Jags, who had a hard time doing that for a while. We mentioned it. Did we mention it with another team? I don't know if Detroit maybe before this turnaround. Yeah, you got to get. That's a thing. When you're not used to being a road favorite, that's something that you do have to get used to. Anyway, also Houston rookie head coach coming off a bye, so he's not experienced at this. That should be in the advantage of Carolina. So I'll take Carolina as one of the picks. And the other pick that I have going in the game, I should be going this week, is Washington against Philly. And I have to take Washington because this matchup has really been to Washington's favor recently. 3-4 straight up, 4-1-2 against the spread. Their last 7 matchups with the Eagles. Let's not forget the overtime loss this year at Philadelphia. And they were a 9-point dog in that week 4 matchup. Remember I told you Dallas was playing Philly? Well, when Philly is a week away from playing Dallas, they've dropped 6 straight covers. Okay? So we know one team seems to be looking ahead, that's for sure. And Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Eagles, 1-5 against the spread all time, which was last year, off a double-digit straight-up win when he's taking on a losing team. So that's why I'm jumping on Washington this week. 2 upsets, all right? And you're probably not going to believe either one, but I need one of them to work out, okay? So that's the strategy. If you get one that work out, you're making money, but you just need one. So the early game, hopefully I can get one early, is I'm taking the Patriots. Because I don't, when the Patriots do something positively, I don't look at it as, it's just a 1 week thing. To me, with Bill Belichick, that means something. And with Bill O'Brien, that maybe they finally have found what they've been looking for. That's going to be my feeling on this. That what they did last week against the Bills, it's just not a 1 week thing. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I'm at least taking a chance with a dog. Otherwise, Miami is really good in this spot. They've won 3 straight up ATS at home against New England by 75-43. All right. Also at home this year, 3-0 straight up and against the spread by a 143 to 57 margin. So those two alone would say take the Dolphins, and you might want to do that. I've just given you the information to do that. Also, the Patriots 6-11 against the spread. Last 17 as a road dog, 0-2 this year. So all of that is saying take the Dolphins and give the 9 points. But I am not looking at it. I'm not looking at this game as a point spread thing, because if I was, I would probably take the Dolphins. Of course, that's telling me to take the Dolphins. I'm just looking at this of just, again, not only New England side, but Miami side. Now, last week, we told you why we liked Philly. It was one of the games we won last week, and it was because it was no stats, nothing. It was Miami hasn't proven themselves against top competition, especially on the road. Got beat up by the Bills, and they pretty much got beat up in a way against the Eagles now. Okay, well, they're back home against a bad team, so they should romp and all that. I just think division game. I just think that this is maybe a spot, sort of like I was saying with the Rams. And again, I could be completely wrong. So take the Rams and take the Dolphins. That the Dolphins are kind of due for a hard-fought home game. And that after losing last week, that this is an interesting spot for New England. It's the combination of you lose, you've just lost twice this year in big games. That's got to hurt psychologically. Taking on a team that you've handled at home recently, you've crushed everybody at home, big favorite, so we shouldn't have a problem, right? That kind of thing. That's the feeling. And on the flip side, you get the Patriots finally playing like the team that they think they could be playing like. So we'll see. All right. And the other one is Denver. Yes, I am going to say that the Denver Broncos are going to snap the Chiefs' 16-game series winning streak, depending on which team you take. The line's actually dropped to 7 from 8. It's 250 on the money line. Denver gets to come off the bye. Chiefs coming off the big game against the Chargers. But I got the combination of, just like I had with, was thinking about with Ole Miss, but I'm getting the combination of distraction. Next week, Kansas City goes to Germany to take on the Dolphins. What a game that's going to be, huh? By the way, that's also, I didn't even think of it in that respect with the Dolphin game, but that's the same thing. Dolphins also have to think, just like the Chiefs, about we've got a game in Germany next week. So I already have to start thinking about that. Now, the coach is going to say 1 week at a time, but you have to start planning for your trip to Germany next week. You don't have an extra week. As soon as the game's over, you've got to have everything set up, basically. And that's a distraction. So I see so you got two teams that are thinking about Germany next week. That could be a distraction, okay? Meanwhile, overconfidence. We've beaten this team 16 straight, and I got Germany next week. I mean, do I have to really study for this Denver team? So there's possibly that. I think that definitely comes into play. Broncos, meanwhile, 11-6 in their last 17 as a home dog. So that could come into play too if you just want to take the points, which might be the way to go. Chiefs win another close one, don't cover, and Denver, they came close but couldn't get it done. But I'll go ahead and take those two teams heading to Germany next week. I'm going against those teams. I'm taking the Broncos and the Patriots. Okay, let's just run out everything here on the NFL side. Cleveland and Seattle. And I don't really have much here, except just keep your eye on injuries, especially along the offensive line for Seattle. That's been an issue all season for them. Other than that, of course, the big thing is Deshaun Watson going to play? So, because I just don't think this can keep up. It can't. If PJ Walker is starting again for the Browns this week, they just can't win. I mean, enough of that. Enough of PJ Walker. Okay. Also, Minnesota, Green Bay. And in this one, Green Bay 0-3 straight up in the last 3, 0-4 against the spread last 4. So this is a game for the season. They're 2-4, cannot afford to lose this football game. They're 0-9 against the spread. Their last 9 is dogs of less than 5 versus losing teams. Obviously not good. The home team in this series, though, is 1-4 straight and against the spread. So Minnesota right now, the 1-point favorite in this one. Three of the four losses, by the way, by Green Bay by 4 points or less. So they just haven't been able to close the deal. But it's a big deal. 2-5 to 3-4. So, but I just couldn't. I can't take Green Bay. I just couldn't touch that game right now. The Packers, they if you're a fan, they've just let you down recently. It just hasn't been pretty. And what are they? I mean, how are they not being able to find a way to get Christian Watson the football? I just don't know. Jacksonville Pittsburgh, huge game. The boys over at Playbook seem to all agree that Pittsburgh should be the favorite in this game. I wasn't one of them, so side with them. But I just looked at this as Jacksonville's better team. That's all I did. I think just like I did with the Saints last week, they're just a better team. Now you got to hand it to Tomlin again. He has them 4-2. They've won 4-5 straight up ATS. Now here's the big one that goes for them. They're 12-2-4 against the spread as a home dog in their last 18. 2-1 in that spot this year. So that's huge. But I'll counter with Jacksonville. 4-0 straight up and against the spread away from home this year. So 2 on the road, 2 at London, and 7-0 in the last 7 in that spot. They're also 4-0 straight up ATS in the last 4 by a 116-71 margin. So I'm not taking the game because Pittsburgh's awfully good in this spot, but I just think Jacksonville's better, and they're also pretty good in this, the way they're playing lately. Keep in mind they're in a bye next week, Jacksonville. I think it helps that they were playing Thursday Night Football, though, so they have a few extra days of rest. So I think it's a little bit harder to just kind of, the bye, we can kind of regroup because they kind of had that extra time already. So I'd be a little bit more skeptical if they played on Sunday and didn't have those extra 3 days. Speaking of the Saints, Saints battle a 3-4 team, so this is a huge game. Saints are a 1-point favorite. They started out a 1-point dog. How about this? This goes against the Colts, big time. 1-15 against the spread. Now, this only matters, of course, if they are the favorite, which they were in the beginning of the week. 1-15 against the spread is favorites of 7 or less in the second of back-to-back home games versus a losing team. So that's right now they don't have to worry about that because they're the 1-point dog, and they haven't been a favorite all year too. But this one, nothing they can do about it. 2-13 against the spread after they score 35 or more points. Now I will say this: in that situation, I bet you they probably out of those 15 games, I bet you they probably won 13 or 14 of them. So I look at that more as, well, a team scoring a ton of points, probably winning big. And so the next week, it comes back to earth kind of thing. That's just my gut feeling. I haven't done the stats on it or not. But I'm not touching that game, obviously. Cincinnati at San Francisco. This is the game of the week. Bengals look like they're getting back on track. I've been on this team. If you've been watching this channel for the last 2 years, since Cincinnati has made their rise, I have been with them every step of the way. I took them the year that they made their breakout. So I've been behind them before everybody else was. So I feel good about that. And this is what this is kind of more in my zone anyway. Dave Syvertson's a draft expert. Mark Lawrence is a gambling expert. What I pride myself on are the futures, being able to look at when I think teams are ready to take off, when I think players are ready to take off, that sort of thing. I've had a lot of success with that over the years. And the Bengals are just the latest example. So I've been with them every step of the way. And I don't see anything that tells me anything differently this year, that they are going to make the same run. And they're 25-1 to win the Super Bowl. They are the best bargain, period, right now. Out there, because you got 5 or 6 teams that are all the favorites, but the Bengals are still. Look, if they win this game at San Francisco, you're gonna thank me for putting some money on the futures now, because that will cut in half minimum if they win the game against San Francisco. Now, one side says take Cincinnati trend wise. They're 18-5 straight up, 18-4-1 against the spread. They're last 23 when they play games outside their division. But San Francisco has covered 15 of 16 as a home favorite. 15 of 16. 3-0 in that spot this year. So, but recently, Bengals 2-0 straight up ATS last two. San Francisco, the exact opposite. And does anybody know if Trent Williams is going to play? I think he probably will. Probably won't practice and play. Deebo Samuel, though, is not going to be around. And by the way, McCaffrey didn't look all that great coming back last week. The primetime games, not very good. Does anybody care about the Bears at the Chargers? Sunday Night Football? Who put the Bears on Sunday Night Football at this time of the year? I used to think Sunday Night Football is the game of the week. I mean, they're going to have the Las Vegas on Sunday Night Football in a couple of weeks. And they got Las Vegas on Monday Night Football. And they just had Las Vegas on prime time last week, two weeks ago. What's this Las Vegas thing? Chicago, Chargers. I mean, you have a Division II quarterback on the road for the first time. Can't be good. They've still found a way to beat the Raiders last week, which just shows you how the Raiders need a quarterback. You can say what you want about Josh McDaniels, but you can't blame the guy completely when he has no quarterbacks. So with all the quarterbacks that are going to be available in this year's draft, the Raiders will be one of them. That'll be grab one. They're not going to hand the keys over to Aiden O'Connell, though he might turn out to be a good quarterback. But they got to get that room. They got to find a veteran, keep a veteran. Maybe it's Jimmy G, but then you got to bring in first-round draft pick, Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy G, and that's how you take off. That's your future. Anyway, as far as the Chargers and the Bears, no Fields, no Herbert. I don't know, and a Division II quarterback starting. Matt Herberflus, 1-9-1 against the spread when he takes on teams off a straight-up loss. That's pretty bad. Meanwhile, Las Vegas and Detroit, I don't know how to even touch this game considering how Detroit played last week. Because Montgomery did not play. And right now, he's a big part of their team. Like, he is the physical, offensive part of that team. And with him not being there, because you got the bye next week, so he's going to have a few more weeks off to rest up. I mean, it logically, you say you take Detroit. If somebody told me I had to take the game, obviously I'm taking Detroit. But, the Vegas is coming off a miserable performance, so they should be better. And Detroit's coming off just an inexcusable performance. So they should be better, but they're the favorite. So, they're expected to. So they have a little bit more pressure on them in that situation. I'm out of here. Don't forget, subscribe. Also, share the video. We've got to get subscribers on this channel. The more subscribers we get, and the better we do with these videos, the better it's going to be for you guys, because I'm going to be able to reciprocate big time as far as more and more coverage from not just one or two or three or four people, but a bevy of analysts and writers from across the country. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week.